So, we had a very interesting update when it comes to the COVID-19 jab. But before we begin this video, if you would like to support this channel monetarily, I do have a Cash App listed under Minutes of Horror. But you don't have to support this channel monetarily either. You can always like, comment, and share this video to support this channel as well. I do appreciate any and all support. On this planet, on this world, inside this bubble we call a reality, there are three people that you don't want to hear there is a slight problem from. One being your surgeon, another being an airline captain, and the third being your wife. Upon hearing we have a slight problem from any of these three people, ass cheeks should be clenched. Well, we actually have a new contender when it comes to those you don't want to hear we have a slight problem from, quite possibly making its way to the top three. And that is those who insert something in you, such as a specific jab. Largest ever C-19 jab study links the shot to a slight increase in heart, brain, and blood conditions. Now, this is quite scary because what does the word slight mean to them? Because they're not going to come right out and state that the C-19 jab is causing an increase of issues, is causing a lot of issues. They're not going to come out and state that because there's going to be a lot of panic. People are never going to trust the science again. People aren't going to trust the medical industry again when it comes to future events. So they are going to try to make it as sweet as possible by using words such as slight. So they're going to want to downplay this as much as possible, given the fact that a certain disease X is right around the corner. But researchers from Global Jab Data Network in New Zealand analyzed 99 million people who received the jab across 8 countries. They monitored for increases in 13 different medical conditions in the period after people received the jab. The study, which was published in the journal Jab last week, found that the jab was linked to a slight increase in neurological, blood, and heart-related medical conditions, according to a press release. People who receive certain types of mRNA jabs, which, as we know, is Pfizer, among others, were found to have a higher risk of myocarditis, which we already knew. They try to pass it off as just a silly conspiracy theory, but most of us already knew this. Myocarditis, which is basically heart inflammation, was not affecting the elderly as much as it was affecting adolescent and young adult males within 7 days after receiving their second dose of the mRNA jab. This is also coming around the same time that we were seeing a lot of young athletes, for instance like LeBron James' son, just dropping from heart disease. Now, myocarditis is indeed scary. Heart inflammation is scary, especially if you're a young adult, you're running back and forth, you're athletic, you're exerting yourself, but because you have heart inflammation, your heart is working a lot harder than you realize, and you end up collapsing. Sometimes your heart even stops. It's even scarier for people who already have heart conditions because, again, your heart has to work even harder. But what it sounds like is that myocarditis might be the least scariest thing coming from this article. Some viral vector jabs were linked to a higher risk of blood clots in the brain, as well as an increased likelihood of Guillain-Barré syndrome, a neurological disorder in which the immune system attacks the nerves. Other potential risks included inflammation of parts of the spinal cord after the jab, and inflammation and swelling in the brain and spinal cord after the jab and mRNA jabs as well. Another complication could be pericarditis, and how it differs from myocarditis is that pericarditis is an inflammation of the outer lining of the heart. Myocarditis is inflammation of the actual heart muscle. Now, what's scary is that they said they were doing a study, this is the largest study ever, and they found 13 conditions that are connected to the jab. The jabs that are associated with Pfizer, Moderna, and other jab companies. And they only list a few conditions in these news articles. They don't discuss all 13 conditions or what the other conditions could be. Now, another condition or these conditions could be linked to something I covered in another video previously, and that could be having Baal or Osiris's penis inside your body, having his penis all up inside your body. They just found weird, and this is how they label it, obelisk found in human gut may be a virus-like entity. Now, they could have called this virus or this entity just about anything, but they chose to use the word obelisk, which is basically Baal or Osiris's shaft. And as I also said in that video, science is always finding something new. It's not outside the realm of possibility. They just found this new entity, but they also stated that this new obelisk-like entity that's found inside the human body, including the human gut, is very, very common. So it's very common, it's numerous, these obelisk-like entities, and yet they're just now finding it in 2024. These weird entities also made up 7% of human feces. They don't know as of yet how they help or harm humans or their human host, but given that they're named obelisk, it can't be anything good. Now, I should also state that these obelisk-like entities are not confirmed to actually come from the jab itself, but who really knows, right? But as I stated previously in this video, the jab is connected to about 13 medical conditions, and they are only naming a few. They are not telling us the rest. Blood clots to the brain, Guillain-Barré syndrome, are very terrifying. And then on top of everything else, we have the possibility of Osiris's ding-dong. So I'm really curious about these other conditions they are not releasing to the media. Now, one of the ongoing theories when it comes to these people who are panicking or seeing something on their flights that cause them to have some type of great distress is that these people could be people that have taken the jab, and they could be suffering with some kind of psychological disorder or could be hallucinating. We don't know the long-term effects of the jab and how it affects certain people, especially when it comes to certain altitudes. Also, we don't know how much this increases these 13 medical conditions among the public because only 8 countries were studied. Those 8 countries being Argentina, Australia, Canada, Denmark, Finland, France, New Zealand, and Scotland. Not included in this study were countries like the United States, countries in South America, countries like China, and so forth. You also had doctors and CEOs of biotechnology companies come out and state that the overall benefits of the jab are still greater. The adverse events or adverse effects of the jab still remain significantly lower than those contracting the C-19. But how much lower is the risk is yet to be seen because, like I said, they're going to want to downplay the risk of the jab as much as possible. A lot of people want to say, well, this was FDA approved. But you also have to understand the FDA also controls what goes in our food as well. They approve what goes in our food supply. And what goes in our actual food, what they actually approve, is quite horrifying to say the least. Not only that, they still approve a lot of plastics and toxic chemicals inside our food as well. So if they allow a lot of this stuff to go on with our food supply, what makes you think this won't happen with drugs as well? So what was previously known as safe and effective is now known as safe and effective with a quote-unquote slight risk. But thank you so much for watching. If you like this channel and you want to see more, please subscribe. If you're already subscribed, please like, as any engagement does help the channel grow. Once again, thank you so much for your support.